I'm David Gadarian, and welcome to The Flip Story, where we explore the intersection of human potential and market creation. Today's guest is someone I'm genuinely thrilled to have on the show. If you've ever used a life coach, read a book on career reinvention, or watched a TED Talk about finding your purpose, you are walking on a path that today's guest helped pave. She is a best-selling author of Now What and quite literally a pioneer who helped found the International Coach Federation. She is the person people call when they are qualified for one thing but feel meant for another. Laura Berman Fortgang, welcome to the show.
Thank you, David. I love that. Qualified to
Abs-
do one thing and meant to do another. That's exactly it.
well, I'm excited to dive in. And I think for folks listening in, maybe we should start with you now, if you don't mind, of kind of what are you up to now? And then we'll kind of work backwards. We'll start, kind of where you started and we'll kind of catch up. But
Sure.
I guess in your own words, yeah.
Sure. I mean, I basically have three things that I do. Even though my identity has been like as a coach for 32 years already. I work with people who are trying to figure out what to do with their life. I work with executives who are wanting to get to the next rung in the ladder, and I work with fellow coaches and consultants who want to grow their businesses. But, our focus today is now what? That book is called Now What 90 Days to New Life Direction. And it's a methodology to help people gain career clarity or gain the confirmation that what their gut is telling them is the way to go.
Right. Okay. So that's, I think, a good baseline for us to kind of dive in. So let's go from now what to from when. So you grew up, your TED Talk, you talk about this. You grew up in an immigrant household. Your grandfather came from overseas, seemed like a big motivator. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up, I was born in Brooklyn, but I spent 6 years in Venezuela. My dad's dream was to so my grandfather came over when he was 16 years old and landed in New York City. My dad's first generation American, first to go to college, first to get the corporate job. And his
Right.
dream was to see the world. So I spent 6 years in Venezuela as a kid, like from 5 years old to 12 years old, that almost 7 years. And then from there, I've kind of been a Jersey girl ever since.
Right. Okay. And where'd your dad work, if you don't mind me asking?
He worked for what was called Worthington Pump, which is now, I think, still owned by Dresser Industries. So he was trained as a chemical engineer and he
Right.
sold pumps and compressors to the oil industry. And that's how we ended up in Venezuela.
That makes sense. So heavy industrial. And you went to college, obviously, because you had to and you probably wanted to. Did you have to or did you want to?
I wanted to, but I actually wanted to go when I knew what I wanted to do. I didn't like going, undeclared major just because it's the milestone you're supposed to do. But my parents did make me go. They
Right.
wouldn't let me be a theater major. That's what I wanted to do.
Right.
But it was like, you're going and you're not going to be a theater major. Pick something else. So I picked communications with the rest of the frustrated performers and, put myself in TV shows and movies, but I produced them, knew how to make them start from start to finish.
Right.
Um, and then, at some point my parents changed their mind. They're like, "Oh, no," they saw me at a play and they're like, "If you want to be a theater major, you do you." But I was like, I'll get the degree. I'll go the safe route. But then when I graduated, I was more afraid to get a job and be locked into a lifestyle and not pursue my dream. So I really wanted to pursue my dream. So I moved to New York City, which wasn't far from home,
Yep.
and I waited on tables, which is what you do,
Right.
and pursued Broadway musical theater. So I, eventually got my union card. I worked like 6 months out of the year, and the other 6 months out of the year, I was waiting on tables or doing catering jobs or doing shoe modeling and, whatever I could do to make money. But at some point, I was like, wow, I could be 40 and still be living out of a suitcase and not having a huge career. So
Right.
I got disillusioned with the lifestyle and reached out to an old mentor of mine who'd become a coach. I'd never heard of such a thing. And I worked with him for 2 years and then said, I really want to do what you do. And that happened to be at the same time that one of the first coaching schools was organizing. So I was student number 16 at something called Coach U. Then those same 16 people started the International Coaching Federation, which now is the largest body worldwide to certify coaches.
Yep.
And I was, a little bit of an early adopter,
Yep.
and right place, right time, had a lot of media attention, had book deals thrown at me, was on the Oprah Winfrey Show. I was on all the morning shows that come out of the New York area, the Today Show, the Good Morning America,
Right.
all of them. And, it became a keynote speaking career. And I mean, it just took off like crazy. So everything I ever wanted to do, magazines, TV, and, and all that happened post acting.
Right. So, okay. So just before we get too far into today and to all of that, so it sounds like your journey, you finish college, you get the degree, even though at this point your parents aren't putting a lot of pressure on you to get it. You felt like, okay. And I get it. Communications, you're still in the neighborhood of communications even today, just
Yep.
kind of hearing everything that you're up to. And you wanted to make the leap into acting, which is, in my view, insanely bold for anyone to pursue that. At the time, super confident or super scared? What's going on there?
I think I was naive. And I didn't know it. So that means you're like excited and confident.
Right.
I had no idea. I mean, I didn't have an agent. I didn't know how
Yeah,
to
of
work the
course.
business, but I just showed up. I did what you were supposed to do. You get the newspaper at the time. It was the newspaper, and you looked
Right.
at where the auditions were, and never got myself into those scary situations, even though I remember one time at a restaurant that I was working at, I was like, well, I have to go to an audition. I have to go to this guy's apartment. And one of the guys stood up and was like, no, you are not going to any man's apartment alone. I'll go with you. And he was right on the money. He was
Oh my
right on the
goodness.
money. I'm so glad he was out in the hallway waiting for me.
Right.
So that was the only dangerous situation I ever had. And my mother warned me, never take your clothes off, no matter how bad it gets, never take your clothes off. So, um, I heeded my mother's advice,
Right.
but,
So
so
go ahead.
courageous, but more foolish than anything.
Right. So I listened to your TED talk. I thought it was amazing, by the way,
Thank you.
and we'll get into that shortly. But you talked about something in there that I thought was kind of fascinating. I think this is an interesting space for a lot of people. A lot of people maybe don't even discover it. You mentioned you had a 5-year plan and you looked up at year 7 and you hadn't really succeeded in your 5-year plan. So, and plenty of people, particularly in Hollywood and acting, they take it to 40, they take it to 50. That's, even though they're not quite living the dream that they had originally kind of set out to achieve, they keep going. You came to a different conclusion and you stopped, and you at this point, and I think it's a good leapfrog into kind of what comes next. What's going on there? Did you feel like, well, I tried it and okay, moving on, or failure, or what's
Oh,
the
no, I took
headspace?
it very hard. I thought it was a flat out failure. I took it
Yeah.
very, very hard. In fact, I suffered a 3-year depression
Yep.
over it, and I came out on the other side, well, thank goodness.
Yeah, yeah.
But I took it very hard. I felt I'd failed. I had worked so hard. I did everything you were supposed to do. How could it not have worked out? But
Right.
in, all these years hindsight, it's the best thing that ever happened that it didn't work out. You
Right.
know,
I totally get that.
all that training helped me so much to be a speaker, to be a communicator, to be a marketer. Like I remember when made the decision that I was going to pursue this thing called coaching that no one had ever heard of back in 1991.
Yep.
um, I just felt like, wow, I've already suffered through the worst humiliations and rejections. This is nothing. If I take the energy that I used to pursue acting and take it to the real world, I'll go far. So, same blind enthusiasm and naivete, but I had, I don't know what leg I had to stand on other than I was a client and coaching had changed my life. So I was like a converted smoker. reformed smoker. I was like, this thing's great. Everyone has to have it.
Right. So you kind of through being coached, you kind of had this transition, it sounds like, and then you still you think that everything you come to that's new, you come in with just this kind of insane enthusiasm, or is that something that you've built some, I guess, life confidence over time to
I
kind of
think I've
say,
been able
okay,
to
this is going to
I've
work out.
tempered that, I've matured in the sense that, um, I'm not constantly changing directions, but I do find that
Right.
I need some new lifeblood to what I do, like, every 3 or 4 years. So I do kinda jump in. I'm a starter, and I have to get the
Right.
right people in place to help me be a finisher, like, I like the new idea, I like the exciting new thing, and I set out, and I don't give up, but, I know I need to start delegating pieces of the business that I don't like, to keep it going, and I've been able to do that successfully.
How long did it take you to figure that out, that you're a starter and that you need help finishing?
Probably 3.5 years into my business, I was like, I hate this part. It makes me want to quit. All right, pay somebody to do it. Anything that
Right.
makes you want to quit, you've got to look at. Um, yeah, so I've been a good delegator ever since.
Right. And I think that's for a lot of folks that, you know, still trying to find their way. They feel like they want to conserve capital. They want to save both physical money and also time capital. They figure they have to learn something, be expert at everything. And it sounds like you were pretty quick within 3.5 years to go from coaching into to discovering that piece
Yeah, I mean, I
was
I help a lot of small business owners now, and people feel like, I don't want to spend the money. I have to do everything myself. And there
right.
comes to a point where there's a diminishing returns on that. Like, you're draining yourself of energy, you're draining yourself of time. I ask people all the time to, like, write down, what are the $10 an hour tasks in your business? What are the $50 an hour tasks in your business? What are the $500 an hour tasks in your business? And you should only be doing the $500 an hour tasks. Someone else should be doing the $10 an hour, the $25 an hour tasks. And I learned early on, just on my own, that if I was even paying a student at, way back, it was $7 an hour,
Right.
helped me free up time and energy that needed to be put on the important things. Just a quick side journey here. I've also run for office twice in the United States,
Okay.
and there's a rule in running for office that the candidate really only has two jobs: meet voters and raise money.
Okay.
And I kind of use that now in business too. It's like, my job is to talk to clients and serve them well, and to talk to prospects and serve them
Right.
well. Anything else should be done by somebody else if possible. And that's how I look at it. And that's how I advise my other business owners is, you know, y- the parts that are you and only you, great. You can do those. Somebody else has to do the other stuff.
All right. So that's a euphemism, I guess. Can I say that?
Yeah, I
I
like
don't know.
that.
A little cheesy, but
A
I went there
euphemism.
anyway. Yeah. Um, and so coming back to, I'm going to try to tie a few things together
Sure.
in your journey here. So you have this really wonderful analogy and this idea of this shell and yolk concept that I
Yes.
think is really well told. It's well, maybe you could explain it before I even ask the question.
Okay. So to present it to our listeners. So this
Yep.
goes back to my career clarity work with people, that there's, like, if you think of your job description as an egg, right? So there's the shell. The shell is everything that can be taken away. And then there's the part inside that once you open the egg, you have lots of choice and variety, right? So when I was an actor, there's the egg of the actor. And, that included how people looked at you and you thought you were special, and, all the suffering that came with it and everything else. And then if you open up that egg, what's left inside? Well, there's a communicator, there's an actor, meaning someone who takes action, not meaning someone who fakes things. Um, and there was, a hustler, someone with the energy to hustle. So that's inside the egg. So that's how I could make the transition, and I help other people make transitions. It's not transferable skills as much as it is what's the identity around the career that you've chosen and what's your true identity, right?
Right.
So once you take away the trappings of, let's say, lawyer, you went to Harvard and you're part of the Harvard Club and your grandmother's proud and your mother's proud and all these things that make you cling to that shell. We want to open that up and take, the good communicator out of it. We want to take the good writer, the good performer, all the things that are the justice seeker. We want all those pieces to move on to whatever's next. So that's the egg and the yolk idea.
All right. So that's amazing, by the way. Thank you for just sharing that with everybody. And so my question is, y- as an entrepreneur, which you certainly are, as a deep thinker, which you certainly are, where in your journey, so I assume you kind of were living this egg yolk scenario when you were as an actor, and did you know this as you started to decide you were going to become a coach, or how long did it take you to kind of crystallize these ideas into what's probably a lot closer to your current practice?
Yeah, no, it was all in hindsight. It took me 10 years. It was
Hmm.
10 years post my acting career that I realized, oh my gosh, the real reason why I wanted to be an actor wasn't necessarily the costumes and the fun and the being another person and the applause. It was the the yolk, what was inside being an actor. Take away all that stuff, that's the shell. What was left was I really wanted to make an impact from the stage. I wanted people to be in the theater and think about their lives. I wanted them to experience something in the theater that transformed them. And that was what excited me about acting. And I realized, oh, I don't have to be an actor and go through all that hell to have that happen. I could do this other thing. And I basically still get to perform, I'm still on stages and I'm still,
Right.
crafting my own plays, so to speak, when I write a keynote speech. Um, and I get to see the impact that it has. When people go to the theater, they might applaud, but they leave the theater, you go home, eat something, go to bed, like you don't know what impact you have.
Right. So 10 years
It took me 10
from
years post leaving acting to recognize what it was really all about.
Eureka, or like a slow discovery?
There was a
How did you
eureka.
what's that?
It was a eureka. It was
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
it was while I was writing Now What? 90 Days to a New Life Direction. When I was writing it, I was like, "Wait a minute. I totally get now why I did that."
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. That's
Sure.
really neat. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about coaching a little bit further. So, different question. You're obviously a hugely accomplished coach. You were one of 16 at the time.
Yep.
It was not anywhere near as firm a space as it is today. I think it's pretty normal for folks to engage with coaches. I know I've had a couple in my career. I don't think I'm unique in that regard. Probably 1990, maybe I would have been way ahead. But so you're in this new space, and I want to ask specifically because there's a lot of new just happening in general. But in your headspace at that time, how confident were you that this was going to work? How much did you need it to work? How much was it was just part of the journey? And if it kind of works, great. If not, I'll go on to my next. What was happening right there at that moment?
Oh, it was 100% all in. Like, this could not fail because I had nothing else that I had no other ideas as to what I could do.
Right.
So, I mean, I bought it hook, line, and sinker. I was, like I said, I was a client first. I had this experience where, my coach helped me make changes in my life, including deciding to get married. And I started out more in life coaching, but I quickly discovered that there was a corporate need
Right.
And so I was in corporations before the big, all the big firms that went into coaching later on. And that helped me build my credibility. But let me get back to answering your question. I mean, I was 100% in. Like it was one of those things where it's like, this cannot fail because I don't have a plan B. It just had to be. And I
Right.
behaved accordingly. Not that I didn't question it. I mean, I'd get 3 clients, I'd lose 2. I'd, get 1, I'd lose 1. It took 2.5 years to really take off,
Right.
where I'd stop worrying about every single client. Um, but the main way I grew my business was speaking, going out and speaking for free in the beginning, and that was home to me. The stage was home to me. So I was in. I was no questions. I had doubts, but no questions.
Right. And it sounds like you had some momentum skills. Is that even the right word? I don't know what you would call that
I
as a
don't know if
coach. Like
momentum is a skill.
complementary skills. Well, you had some things that, some, I don't know, superpowers, some understanding of kind of how to go be comfortable on a stage,
I have
how to
chutzpah.
engage.
Do you know what chutzpah
You
is, David?
of course I know what
All right.
chutzpah is.
So
Yeah.
cojones is not the exact translation, but if someone speaks Spanish, I just had gumption and
Right.
balls. There you go.
Right. And you think you learned that from acting, from all the auditions and things of that nature? Because
I
that's
do.
very much an actor skill that is unbelievably
Yeah,
underappreciated.
I mean, actors will be like, "Do you ice skate?" "Yeah, I ice skate," and throw them on the ice, and they're like, "Oh, I don't ice skate like as well as I thought I did." You just say yes before you even think about it, and that's the foolishness part but it lands you places. But
Right.
there's for all our listeners, if they don't know this from the acting world, there's improvisational comedy, right? Or it's like what you see on Saturday Night Live is sketch comedy, but it may start as an improvisation, and there's a rule in improvisation that you never say no. So if someone says the sky is blue, you don't go no, you go yes, and yes, it's blue and it's raining. Right? So that's
Right.
how you shift the conversation. So that yes, and that's the energy of taking on something new. Like, yeah, it's scary and I'm going to succeed. Yes, people doubt me and I'm not going to doubt myself. Right? So that was one of the hardest things about getting into coaching early on is no one had heard what it was. There were 16 of us in the East Coast, maybe 16 on
Right.
the West Coast. And there were a lot of doubters. "Oh,
Yeah,
what
of course.
qualifies you? How can you give people advice?" And it's like, "Well, I'm not giving advice. I'm asking really good questions." That way I
Right. And then go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that way you're not doing anything that requires anything other than your coach training.
Yeah, and I could see it like kind of early stage. I'm a big believer in coaching, by the way. I can say that. But I could see like anything early stage, there are doubters. You're also, you're competing against whatever's established. It's hard to break in, and it's even harder to not only to break in, you guys were actually establishing something new and novel, and that is I think a really neat turn.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
I feel privileged that I had this in my lifetime. I don't think you get it twice in one lifetime that you get to start a profession or to be in the ground floor of something that has grown. I mean, exponentially. I mean, I keep statistics on my desk. It's a $4.5 billion industry, coaching now.
I believe it. I believe it, and I think there's, all there's like a whole diagnostics and tools and, you know, online this and that, and it's that doesn't when you say 4.5 billion, that doesn't totally surprise me. I don't think I ever tried to put a number against it.
I
So
mean,
next time maybe
ironically, the average coach doesn't make that much money though. Like 82% fail within 2 years of trying to start a business.
yeah, and that's funny because, at one point, like for me, I had a small marketing business, and it wasn't about being a good or bad marketer. It was, the things that challenged me the most were running a business.
Exactly.
Had nothing to do with actually the practice of marketing, anyway, it's kind of fascinating.
It
So that
is.
doesn't surprise me at all, and I would think coaching in particular, it's a solopreneur kind of activity, and you know, any practice, it takes a while just to kind of
It
pick up.
takes a while. It's very isolating because you are working alone. And like you said, like you can be an awesome coach, an extraordinary, thinker and helper of people, and yet if you don't know how to run a business, no one's going to know about it.
Right.
Yeah,
Those little secrets. Yeah, you don't want to be the best kept secret
exactly.
in anything that can be challenging. All right. Let's maybe go forward a little bit. So to your a little closer to your today. Um, and again, I'll go back to that TED talk. You know, you had mentioned 10 years ago, this talk, it clearly resonated 10 years ago. It continues to resonate really well. One of the key areas that I thought was particularly sharp was this idea that half of the people at work are unhappy. 10 years on, where do we sit on that? Would you say we're better, worse, the same?
I think it's worse. Those numbers haven't changed very much. I keep checking that statistic online to make sure I'm up to date. Yeah, I mean, more than half the people would do something else if given the chance. So half the people don't like their jobs. And yet it's such a position of privilege to be able to say, "Oh, I don't like my job, what
Right,
else could I do?" But we've evolved as people, like I talk about that in my TEDx talk that, my grandfather came over on the boat who was a butcher, like happy at work is not like some, happy is putting food on the table, happy is not being self-actualized or doing meaningful work, but we've evolved, so I look at the three generations. That's my grandfather, my father, who did all the right things and became the corporate guy. He hated his job by the time I was a teenager.
right,
Hated it. He made us all miserable because of how much he hated his job, and I'm sure that has something to do with why I help people find career satisfaction, is because no one should suffer to make a living. My father hated it, and he was too stubborn to do anything else. It was like he didn't have the choices. He just was like, I'm not going to go be a butcher like my father. I went the
right,
corporate route and went to college, did all the right things, and he didn't know that he had choices. And maybe he didn't, because being self-employed wasn't as popular in the 1970s as it is now.
right. Yeah, I could see that. Okay. So it's kind of interesting. I don't know. I clearly, I mean, the job satisfaction's very much in the news. Career satisfaction's very much in the news. There's like all these new words, quiet quitting, quiet firing.
Right.
Apparently, it's not so quiet today in today's current environment. There's generational happiness, generational expectations. And so, what are you're kind of in a unique spot because you coach individuals, you coach companies, you coach coaches.
Yes.
Um, it's fascinating, right? So you have kind of the full gauntlet or gamut of all types of customer in your base. And what are you seeing as some kind of common trends for for folks, things that they're struggling with, and then maybe some we'll get into the flipped recipe book, some ideas that maybe that people can apply. But what's your take on the market today? I guess I'll
Well,
keep it open and
AI is the big bugaboo now, right? It's like, am I going to lose my job because of AI? We're seeing entry level positions shrinking because of AI.
mhm,
So it's a tough market for young people just out of school. Um, I think people are a little bit in fear mode at the moment. It's not a confident environment of,
right,
because so many people have lost their jobs from cuts and everything. So, we're running the fear thing at the moment, but it's causing a lot of people to be creative and they have to evolve. AI is here to stay.
right,
We can't be afraid of it. We kind of, we don't have to be masterful at it, but we have to be aware of what it could do to our job. Um, and I'm still finding plenty of people wanting to work on their career trajectory. That hasn't really changed. I haven't seen, like, business slow down or anything.
right. So Just staying on the AI kind of piece, I think it is fascinating. Have you started to get a wave, and it doesn't sound like you have yet, but I anticipate you will soon, a wave of clients that are riding the AI wave and saying, I can use AI and find my inner yoke and get there faster, or not quite yet? It's still fear based.
Um, it's still fear-based. I think it's also an age thing. Older
Yeah.
folk are like, "Yeah, I don't have to bother because I'll be out of here soon." You
Right.
know? And that's what happened to my father with computers. He's like, "Ah, it's just a trend. I don't have to worry about it." Well, in the end, he got fired like 18 months short of retirement because he refused to learn how to use a computer. So we have to stay relevant. We have to stay current. Um, you know, AI doing our job function, it just depends what career you're in. Like, we've had legal Zoom came before today's version of AI. So we've always had, ever since
Right.
we've gone online, we've had things that take the place of some of our um repetitive actions. But I think people will be craving human connection more and more as they have to deal with machines more and more. So the more you evolve your intuition, your creativity, the things that AI hasn't been able to do yet, the better off you'll be.
All right. The Renaissance
Yep.
is coming. Okay, so that's interesting perspective, and I think I'm just kind of researching this episode. I've been kind of fascinated by everything you've kind of been about and your own journeys, and I think it's really interesting. You are, I'd say, you help other people flip. So not only do you help other people flip, you help coaches with navigating multiple flips. So you're almost an exponential flipper. Um, no, it's truly,
Yep.
it's a kind of a fascinating space that you occupy.
Flip
Do you
squared.
think Yep, Flip X. Do you think your 25-year-old self would recognize you?
No.
Why not?
um my 25-year-old self would probably be like, "Wow, you did all that?" I think they'd be surprised. 'Cause I was only looking at the end of my nose at that age. You don't look very far out.
Right.
And a lot has changed, a lot has evolved. At 25, I was like, "I'm never getting married and I'm never having kids," and I have 3 kids and I've been married 33 years. So, I think my 25-year-old self would be shocked.
Love it. Absolutely love it. All right. So Laura, one of the elements of our show we have on here is the Flip Story recipe book. And so we invite all our guests to kind of contribute a recipe, a thinking, a know-how, a set of ingredients that we can add to the full book. So I'm going to invite you to join us.
Well, let's add the egg to the flip book. Let's take the egg, open it up, find the golden center, and know that that is transferable, right? So an egg, whether it's a quail egg or a dinosaur egg, they're all the same shape. They're made up of the same stuff, more or less. But once you open it, you can make poached eggs, scrambled eggs, fried eggs, huevos rancheros. You have opportunity. So get whoever's listening, get out of your little egg, get out of your shell that you contain yourself in, open that up to find the possibilities.
I love it. Done. It's an amazing recipe. One well told and well proven out. So thank you.
Thank you.
Um, absolutely. So, Laura, just kind of as we kind of close out here, how do people find you?
LauraBermanFortgang.com. And if you just put Fortgang into Google, you'll find me.
All right, done.
LauraBermanFortgang.com.
I'll add it to the show notes. So, Laura, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on and for sharing. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show.
A pleasure to meet you, and thanks for doing so much homework. I really appreciate that.
Oh, please, my pleasure. And for everybody listening at home, we'll see you on the next one. Bye now.